Someone finally sat them down and asked them point blank, "Why did you let that person go?" And I want you to picture this scene because it matters. Someone they respect, someone smart, someone who sees right through the performance this person has been putting on for months. And this person who hurt you, who dismissed you, who made you feel like you were asking for too much just by existing, they opened their mouth to answer, and nothing came out right. They stuttered, they fumbled, they went in circles. They tried 3 different explanations, and every single one fell apart the second someone pushed back. And at the end of all that stumbling and bumbling and verbal gymnastics, they had to sit. They had to sit there and admit it. They had to say it out loud. That they were the fool. That they were the one who was selfish, immature, too comfortable, too blind, too wrapped up in their own ego to recognize what was standing right in front of them. And that moment, that is what this is about. Not just what happened to them, but what it means about you, what it reveals about who you actually are, and what you have always been worth. Because sometimes the clearest proof of your value is not what someone said when they had you. It's what they couldn't say when someone finally asked them why they let you go. You have been walking around carrying something heavy, and maybe you haven't even named it yet. And there is this weird mix of relief and grief and something else, something underneath both of those that you cannot quite put your finger on. Because you know it was right. It was right to walk away or let them go or stop trying. But that doesn't make the quite easier. It doesn't stop those moments, or at 2 in the morning when you wonder if you made it all up. If maybe you were too much, too sensitive, too demanding for wanting the bare minimum. You lie there sometimes and you replay things, not even the big blowouts. No, the small moments, the way you'd look past you when you were talking, the way they'd minimize things that matter to you, the way they'd give everyone else their full attention and you'd get whatever was left over. And you'd tell yourself, maybe that's just how it is. Maybe I'm reading into it. Maybe I'm the problem. You're not the problem. No, you were never the problem. Here is what you didn't know was happening while you were doing all that second guessing. Someone else was watching, and I don't mean that in a creepy way. No creepy ways. I mean that people outside your situation could see what you couldn't see from inside it. They could see the glow you carried, the way a room felt different when you were in, the way you showed up for that person consistently with your whole self, even when they barely showed up at all. They saw the patience you had, the grace you extended over and over and over again. And they also saw what that person was doing with all of it, which was not much. not nearly enough. So when someone finally asked them point blank, how did you let that person get away? It wasn't a casual question, it was a reckoning. And the fact that they had no clear answer, no confident response, nothing but fumbling and deflection, and ultimately the admission that they blew it. Just that tells you everything you needed to know about who was the fool in this situation. And it was never you. It was never you. Let me paint you a more specific picture of what this actually looked like, because I think you need to feel it, not just understand it abstractly. Imagine someone sitting across from this situation, across from this person. Maybe a close friend, maybe someone older and wiser, maybe just someone who has their life together in ways this person clearly doesn't anymore. And this person who let you go is trying to explain themselves. They start with the version of the story where they are the reasonable one. You know the version, yeah? The one where they were just protecting themselves, the one where things were complicated, the one where they tried so hard and it just didn't work out. And whoever's listening to this story starts asking questions, simple questions, specific questions. Yeah, what exactly did you try? Yeah, and the story gets smaller. Why didn't you have that conversation? And there is no good answer. Yeah, you said that you said they were too much of what exactly? The silence, fumbling, a completely different explanation that contradicts the first one. Because here is the thing about people who let a genuinely good person walk out of their life. They can feel impressive in their own heads. Yeah, they can tell themselves the story where they were the protagonist, the one who couldn't be held down, the one who knew their worth, the one who was just in a different season. That story works fine when nobody's asking questions. Yeah, when nobody's asking questions, specific questions, simple questions. But the moment someone with real discernment sits down and just asks, that whole construction collapses because there is no solid ground underneath it. There is just ego and comfort and immaturity dressed up as independence. And this person, the one who let you go, they had to watch their own story fall apart in real time. They had to hear themselves say things that even they didn't believe. And whoever was on the other side of that conversation wasn't being cruel about it. They were not yelling. They were just calm and clear and smart. And somehow that's worse, yeah. Because there is nowhere to hide from calm, clear, and smart. There is no drama to point to. There is no way to make yourself the victim when someone's just looking at you with this steady energy that says, I see exactly what happened here. And so do you. What do you think came up in that conversation? Because I want to walk you through this and I want you to let it land. The person asking the questions started noticing things. They noticed that this person's life looked different now, not in a little different, significantly different. The stability that was there before the quiet groundedness, that sense of things being okay, that was gone. Gone. And the person asking the questions made that connection out loud. Like you seemed more stable. You seemed more stable when you were with this person. Things seemed more together. What happened? And instead of being able to answer that with any kind of logic, all this person could do was get defensive and then slowly, painfully get real, because they knew. On some level, they knew the answers. The answer was you. You were the stabilizing force. You were the one who kept things grounded. You were the one who brought consistency and care and a level of realness into their life that they had never quite had before and absolutely have not found since. And they threw that away. Or they let it slip through their fingers through neglect, manipulation, mixed signals, control, of course, always keeping one foot out of the door. And now they are sitting there trying to explain it, and they can't. Because there is no explanation. There is no explanation that doesn't end with I was an idiot. So they said that in their own way, with a lot of verbal detours that said that, actually. And I need you to really hear what that means, because for so long you may have been the one explaining yourself, justifying your feelings, shrinking yourself down so they wouldn't feel threatened by how much you actually had to offer. You made yourself smaller so they could feel bigger. You held back the joke that would have stolen the room because you didn't want to outshine them. You kept your opinions quieter in a group settings because you learned that when you shone too bright, something in them got uncomfortable. You calibrated yourself constantly, not because you were weak, no, but because you were trying to make it work. You were trying to meet them where they were. And where they were was just not up to your level. Not even close. That's not arrogance. No, that's not arrogance. That's just the truth. Finally being said without the filter of hoping things would get better. Here is what manipulation actually looks like from the outside, and I want you to see this clearly. When this person was trying to keep you around, they were consistent in a very specific way. They showed up when they wanted something. They were attentive when they were afraid you might leave. They were loving and present and almost perfect in those moments when they needed to keep you hooked. And then the moment they felt secure, the moment they thought you were not going anywhere, they went back to being distant and unreliable and half-present. Love bombing followed by complete withdrawal. This circle over and over. And you felt crazy because you couldn't figure out which version of them was real. The answer is neither. No version was really fully real. The good version was performance. Yeah, the bad version was just who they were when they stopped performing. And the frustrating thing, the thing that the person questioning them really pushed on, was that they knew they were doing it. On some level, they saw exactly what they were doing, and they kept doing it anyway because it was working. Because you stayed. Because you kept trying, because you gave them the benefit of the doubt again and again and again. And they mistook your patience for permanence. They thought because you kept showing up, you always would. They got too comfortable. They stopped even doing the minimum. And then you reached your limit, as you should have, actually. And suddenly, everything changed. Suddenly, what they had was what they had was gone, and the weight of that landed on them slowly, like a tide coming in. And by the time they felt the full force of it, you were already somewhere else entirely. The person sitting across from them in this conversation said something that I think about a lot. They said, you had someone who actually showed up for you, who was real with you, who had something to offer that you are not going to find just anywhere. And you treated them like they were lucky to have you, when the whole time it was the other way around. And this person, the one who let you go, couldn't argue with that, because they knew it was true. They'd always known it was true. That's actually why the manipulation happened in the first place, because on some level they knew you were more than them, more emotionally intelligent, more grounded, more real, more capable of actual intimacy. And instead of rising to meet that, they tried to make you smaller so the gap wouldn't be so visible. They tried to manage you, keep you off balance, keep you just uncertain enough about your own worth that you wouldn't notice how little they were bringing to the table. But your gut was screaming at you the whole time, wasn't it? You saw the patterns, you recognized them. You had that feeling that lives in your chest when something isn't right, and you kept trying to logic your way out of it because you wanted to believe in this person. You wanted to see the version of them that showed up in the good moments. And so you stayed longer than you should have. You had the same conversations more times than you can count. You extended grace past the point where grace was helping anything. And eventually something shifted inside you. Not in a dramatic moment, just a quiet knowing. Exhaustion, a tiredness that went deeper than regular tide, and you changed. You changed, not in a big, obvious way, but internally you stopped going so hard. You stopped being as invested. You protected yourself. Yeah. And of course they noticed. Of course they panicked a little when they felt you pulling back. But by then it was too late. Yeah. And on some level you both knew it. The investment was gone. The trust was gone. The feeling there was that this was worth fighting for, that had left the building a long time ago. So you stopped, and then they had to live with what that actually meant. Here is what that looks like now, and I want you to hear this not with satisfaction, but with understanding. It's not good. The drama that they used to redirect toward you, that chaotic, exhausting energy that was always stirring something up, always some crisis, always some conflict with someone, that's still there. It never went away. It was always them. And without you as a stabilizing presence, it's gotten worse. There are people in their life who are not good for them, people who flatter them and use them and create chaos and disappear, people who saw the same easy target that this person was, someone so caught up in ego and comfort and surface level things that they could be manipulated with money or attention or flattery. And this person walked right into all of it, because that's what happens when you do not do the inner work. When you keep running the same patterns, when you choose comfort over growth again and again and again, the same energy you kept running on you eventually runs on you. And now they are deep in it. Drama everywhere, people around them who don't actually have their best interests, financial stress, falling out with people who were supposed to be solid, looking around at their life and finding it genuinely difficult to explain how things got this bad this fast. And somewhere in all of that, in some quiet moments, they thought about you. Not for the first time, not in a casual way, in that specific kind of way where you feel the weight of mistake, where you understand in your body and not just your head what you actually lost. And that understanding hurts in a way that their ego doesn't know how to process, because their ego was never supposed to be wrong. Their ego was supposed to be right about you being replaceable, about there being plenty of options, about you being the one who needed them. And now the reality is just sitting there, not arguing, just existing. And reality says, no, you are not right, not even a little bit. So someone asked them, point blank, why did you let that person get away? And they fumbled. And they tried every version of the story, and none of it held up. And they had to admit it, not just to the person asking, but to themselves in real time, out loud. They had to hear themselves say the words. And I think about what that moment must feel like, to have to admit that you were the one who didn't step up, that you were the one playing games when you had something real, that you were the one who mistook someone's patience for weakness and their grace for desperation and their love for something you could manage and control and take for granted. And that you were wrong about all of it. You were never desperate. Yeah, you were generous. There is a massive difference. You were never weak. You were patient past the point of reason because you believed in people. even when they give you every reason not to. That's not weakness. No, that's not weakness. That is an enormous strength that very few people actually have. And it was wasted on someone who didn't have the capacity to recognize it. Here is what I need you to understand about your worth. Not as a concept, but as something real and specific. The way you show up for people, the way you actually listen, the way your presence in a room changes the feeling of the room, the way you notice things other people walk right past, the way you care, not performantly, but actually genuinely. That is rare. That is not something every person has. Most people are too caught up in themselves to actually see others. Most people are too afraid to actually feel things. Most people spend their whole lives managing their image and protecting their ego and never really connected with anyone, because real connection requires you to be real. And being real is vulnerable. And vulnerable is scary. But you do that. You've always done that. You lead with your actual self, and yes, sometimes that gets taken advantage of. Yes, sometimes people mistake it for something they can manipulate. But it also means that when you are in someone's life, you are genuinely in it. You're actually there. And what this person lost when they lost you was not just a relationship. They lost the experience of being truly seen and truly met by someone who showed up all the way. That's rare. They know that now. They feel that now. Every day they feel it in the specific way that absence makes things clear, that presence made blurry. When you were there, they could take you for granted. Not that you're gone. Now that you're gone, they have nothing to take for granted. They have what they chose, chose instead. The drama, the shallow people, the situations, and the mixed signals, and the people who are only there when it's convenient. And they get to compare that to the memory of what it felt like to actually have you. And that comparison is brutal. That comparison is not something you come back from easily. That is the kind of realization that changes a person. If they let it, actually, if they let it. If they are capable of being changed by it. But whether they change or not, and honestly, whether they reach out or not, is not the part of this that matters most for you. What matters most is that you trust what you felt. You trust your own gut that was telling you for so long that something was off. You trust the version of yourself that finally stopped shrinking. You trust that your capacity for real love, real connection, a real presence is not a liability. It's the most valuable thing about you. And it deserves to be in a situation where it's matched. Not perfectly, nobody's perfect, but genuinely. By someone who shows up, by someone who doesn't make you earn their attention, by someone who sees your value without needing to lose you first to understand it. Because here is the truth about what just happened. This person who fumbled through an explanation and came up with nothing coherent, they gave you the clearest answer you were ever going to get about why things ended the way they did. Not because they were able to explain themselves. No, but because they were not. Because when someone genuinely loves you and genuinely tried, they can say that. They can say that, yeah. They might be heartbroken, they might be sad, but they can say what they did and own it, and it makes some kind of sense. This person couldn't do that because this person didn't truly show up for you. And now they have to live with that while you get to move forward with the knowledge that you were not the problem. You were the prize. You were the prize they didn't know how to hold. You've been carrying around this quiet question, a little bit angry right now, maybe for months. Like questions, was I enough? Did I do something wrong? Was I too much or not enough or somehow both at the same time? And I want you to let that question go. Not because it doesn't matter, but because it's already been answered. The person who sat across from them and watched them stumble and fumble and come up with absolutely nothing, that person answered it. Your presence in their life was the evidence. The change in their life after you left is the evidence. The fact that they cannot give a single coherent reason why they let you go is the evidence. You were enough. You were more than enough. You were so much more than they were equipped to appreciate at the time. And that's not a tragedy about you. That's just a fact about them. So, right now, wherever you are hearing this, I want you to feel something shift. Not dramatically. You don't need a dramatic shift. Just a quiet settling, a sense of things clicking into place. The version of you that kept wondering if you were wrong about yourself, let that version finally rest. You were not wrong. You never were. Your gut was right. Your sense of your own worth was accurate. The ways you felt unseen were real. The things you offered that went unappreciated were real. And the fact that someone is now sitting somewhere having to admit that out loud, fumbling through an explanation, looking like a complete fool in front of someone they respect, that's real too. That's not a fantasy. That's happened. That happens. Because reality doesn't forget. Reality keeps a perfect record. And eventually, everyone gets the bill for what they chose. Your bill is lightness. Your bill is the freedom of not having to manage someone else's ego anymore. Your bill is waking up and not dreading the emotional weather of another person who couldn't decide if they wanted you. Your bill is space. Space for something real, for someone who actually sees you, for the version of your life that has room for someone who matches what you bring instead of diminishing it. That person out there, the one fumbling through their explanation, the one whose life is a mess. The one who is just now starting to understand that what they were lost. It's almost hilarious, actually. Sad and hilarious. They can figure out their own stuff out on their own time. That is not your project anymore. Your project is you. You're becoming your next chapter, the version of yourself that stopped making yourself small and started actually showing up for your own life in the way you've always shown up for everyone else. Because the most ironic part of all of this, the thing that makes it land a certain way, they asked this person why they let you get away. And there was no answer, because you don't have a good reason to let someone like you get away. There isn't one. The only reason it happens is fear and immaturity and being too comfortable and not being ready for something real. And those are their issues to care, not yours. You were never the reason. You were always the gift they didn't know how to keep. And somewhere right now, they know that. And they have to live with it every single day. Yeah, very sad.